The observation deck of the Axiom Traverse fell silent as Ambassador Velrith watched the security footage for the third time. His four eyes blinked in asynchronous confusion, mandibles clicking nervously as he replayed the scene that had caused a galaxy-wide incident report to land on his desk. On the screen, Cadet Mira Thane stood in the xenobiology containment sector, her dark hair tied back in the practical style of human military personnel. She was reviewing supply manifests on her datapad when the containment field flickered, just for a microsecond but long enough. Rix, the juvenile Krevaxian huntling, saw his opportunity. The cub was no larger than an Earth mountain lion but infinitely more dangerous. Krevaxians were apex predators from a death world classified as hazard level 9, with retractable claws that could shear through durasteel and jaw strength measured in metric tons. Even as a youngling, Rix possessed instincts honed by millions of years of evolution at the top of his planet's food chain. He launched himself at Cadet Thane's legs with the lightning speed his species was feared for across 12 systems. What happened next would be analyzed by xenobiologists and military strategists for months. Mira's reaction time clocked at 0.03 seconds, impossibly fast by galactic standards, though merely exceptional by human ones. She dropped her datapad, pivoted on her heel, and caught the 40-pound ball of teeth, claws, and predatory intent midair with both hands. Then, instead of the screaming panic that any rational species would exhibit, she spun around in a complete circle, holding the confused cub at arm's length, and she laughed. It wasn't nervous laughter or the fear-response vocalization common to prey species. It was pure, delighted joy, the kind of sound humans made when experiencing something they found genuinely amusing. "Gotcha, you little troublemaker," Mira said, bringing Rix close to her chest and scratching behind his auditory ridges. The cub, utterly bewildered by this turn of events, made a confused chirping sound, the Krevaxian equivalent of a question mark. Ambassador Velrith paused the footage and turned to the assembled council. "This human," he gestured at the frozen image, "just caught a juvenile Krevaxian huntling, a creature that has a 97% kill rate against trained soldiers when encountered in the wild." "She caught it," Council Member Thrix repeated, her crystalline voice tinkling with disbelief. "And then she played with it?" "Affirmative," Velrith confirmed, resuming the playback. The footage continued. Security personnel rushed to the scene, weapons drawn, emergency containment protocols activated. But by the time they arrived, Mira was sitting cross-legged on the floor with Rix sprawled across her lap, like an oversized house cat, purring, actually purring, as she rubbed his belly.
"He just wanted attention," Mira explained to the shocked guards.
"Look at him. He's basically a puppy." "Puppy?" one of the Zenthari guards had asked, translator struggling with the Earth term. "A juvenile canine. They're companion animals on Earth. Very playful, lots of energy. Sometimes they jump on you when they're excited." Mira demonstrated by wiggling her fingers near Rix's face, causing the cub to bat at them with retracted claws. Playing, not hunting. The guards had stared in horror at what they perceived as a death wish. Back in the present, Ambassador Velrith closed the file and addressed the council. "Since this incident 3 weeks ago, Cadet Thane has been assigned as Rix's primary handler. The cub has imprinted on her completely. When separated, he refuses to eat. When together, he follows her everywhere and sleeps at the foot of her bunk. This is unprecedented," Council Member Thrix observed. "Krevaxians don't form bonds outside their species. They're solitary hunters hostile to all other life forms." "Apparently," Velrith said dryly. "No one informed the humans of this fact." A holographic display activated, showing recent footage from the station's common areas. Mira walked through the corridors with Rix trotting at her heels like an enormous, deadly puppy. Other crew members, species that would normally flee at the sight of a Krevaxian, now simply stepped aside with casual nods of greeting. Children from the civilian sector actually asked to pet him, which Mira allowed under careful supervision, teaching them to approach slowly and let Rix sniff their hands first. "She's domesticating him," another council member whispered in awe. "No," Velrith corrected. "She's teaching him social behavior. There's a difference. Rix is still very much a predator, but under Cadet Thane's guidance, he's learning to channel those instincts appropriately. Last week, he assisted in an emergency drill by tracking a lost crew member through the ventilation system in under 2 minutes. The week before, he helped security identify a Rigelian smuggler by scent alone. The council exchanged glances. They were beginning to understand. The humans come from a death world, Velrith continued. Earth, classification level 12, the highest rating. They evolved alongside predators as dangerous as any in the galaxy. Wolves, bears, great cats. Over millennia, humans didn't just survive these creatures. They befriended them, domesticated them, turned them into companions, workers, even family members. He pulled up an archive image from Earth's historical database. A human child sleeping peacefully with their arm draped over a massive canine, a wolf descendant bred for companionship over thousands of generations. Humans have an almost supernatural ability to form bonds with species that should, by all logical assessment, be their natural enemies. They see potential where we see threat. They offer trust where we would offer violence. On the screen, Mira threw a ball down the corridor. Rix bounded after it with unbridled enthusiasm, retrieved it in his massive jaws, and brought it back to her feet, tail wagging in the Krevaxian expression of happiness. The question before this council, Ambassador Velrith concluded, is not whether we should separate Cadet Thane from the Krevaxian cub. That ship has sailed, as the humans say. The question is, what other impossible interspecies relationships might humans facilitate? Councilmember Thrix's crystalline form shimmered thoughtfully. If they can befriend a Krevaxian huntling, perhaps they could establish diplomatic contact with species we've deemed too dangerous to approach. My thoughts exactly, Velrith agreed. Through the observation window, they could see Mira in the recreation area, teaching Rix to navigate an obstacle course. The cub leaped, climbed, and balanced with the lethal grace of his species, but every few seconds he looked back at his human companion, seeking approval. And each time Mira smiled and called out encouragement, her voice full of pride and affection. The galaxy had underestimated humans again. They weren't just survivors from a death world. They were the species that looked at teeth, claws, and predatory instinct and thought, friend. As the council adjourned, Ambassador Velrith took one last look at the human and her impossible companion. Rix had tired himself out and now dozed against Mira's leg as she sat reading, one hand absently scratching behind his auditory ridges. Perhaps, Velrith thought, the humans' greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their resilience. It was their capacity to find family in the most unexpected places.